Today's date is July 30th, 2003. This is the Sports Oral History Project for New Westminster Archives. Today's interviewee is Ron Loftus. So Ron, what is your full name?
Ronald Owen Loftus.
And your date and place of birth?
July 13, 1938, in Braylorne, B.C.
And what about your marital status?
I've been married for 41 years.
41 years. And do you have children and grandchildren?
I have 3 boys and 1 granddaughter.
1 granddaughter. What's your wife's full name and her maiden name?
Darlene Deanna Nevers.
And was she born in the area as well?
Yeah. She grew up in Saffery, same as I did. So.
Oh, okay. So you say you were born outside of New Westminster. How did you get to Safferton then?
I guess I was maybe 3 or 4 months old, and my folks moved to New Westminster, and then pretty well the rest of my life lived between Coquitlam and New Westminster, mostly in Safferton. Right. I moved to Safferton when I was about 9 years old, I guess.
Okay. And so were your parents originally from New Westminster?
No, my father was he was born in England, but he grew up in Ireland.
Okay. And
my mother was born in Ontario, but she moved around a lot, but her later school years, she lived in Ioko.
Where's Ioko?
It's just outside of Port Moody.
Oh, okay.
Ioko stands for the Imperial Oil Company.
Oh, okay.
It was a company town.
Okay.
Near the refinery.
Okay. So please tell me your current address.
Number 104, 5 Renaissance Square, New Westminster.
So tell me about when you first began playing sports. How old were you, and what sports really caught your interest?
About 11 years old, I started playing lacrosse. In those days, that was as young as it went. You didn't have the tykes and mini tykes then.
Right.
So I started playing Pee-wee lacrosse at 11 years old.
Right.
And a couple years later, I started playing soccer. Played a little bit of hockey when I was about 13 or 14.
Right.
In those days, there were only 3 ice rinks in the whole Lower Mainland, so it was tough to get ice time.
Right.
So.
What sort of, at 11, was it organized sport?
Well, it was, they had a Pee-wee lacrosse league in town.
Okay.
At that time. There would be Safferton, Queensborough, East End, which was Queen's Park area,
right,
and West End, which would have been the other side of, I guess, 8th Street.
So you played for Safferton, is that right?
I played for Safferton, yeah.
And what was the team's name?
Whoever was sponsoring it that year.
Right.
So.
Right.
So.
Right. When you played, were you playing mostly with friends in your neighborhood?
Yeah, I was pretty well. It was all kids you went to school with in the early days.
Right. And so was the community really strong with sports then? Oh
yeah. There wasn't as much opportunities to play then.
Right.
Like I say, you didn't have organized teams until you got to be 11 or 12 years old. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But most of my friends, we all played lacrosse together and soccer together.
Mm-hmm. And were these leagues organized by the schools or outside of the schools?
No, they were outside of the schools. So we played on school teams. We played soccer and softball at school mostly.
Right. Yeah. And that would have been elementary school or high school?
Yeah, at McBride School.
McBride, that's where you went?
Yeah.
Where did you go to high school?
I started out, I went from McBride School to, it was Vincent Massey Junior High School, had just opened up.
Okay.
In the second year that it was open, I went up there.
Okay.
And then I went 1 year in high school at Trapp Tech.
Right.
And they amalgamated with Duke of Connaught and formed Lester Pearson High School. And now they're all one big New Westminster Senior Secondary School, the Massey and Pearson family.
I see.
They kept adding on to the school, so finally they bumped together, and so they made it one school.
Oh, I see. And what was your favorite sport then, as a teenager or as a high schooler?
I think my favorite sport was always hockey. We didn't have any ice to play, but we always played road hockey and lacrosse. And then when I got into soccer, I really enjoyed soccer. I think I was a better soccer player than I was any of the others.
Okay, so tell me then, I mean, first as a lacrosse player, what teams did you play for and positions, things like that?
When I started out playing Pee-wee, my first coach was Rod Carey, who was a New Westminster policeman, and he was quite famous for a lot of years. He used to referee wrestling matches in his later years, and I think he was on the athletic commission in New Westminster. And I played a year with him, and then played a couple of years of bantam lacrosse. One of my coaches was Doug Abrams. A couple of years, my dad coached, and he knew nothing about the game, but the only reason he was the coach was that he was the only adult that was there. So, so we more or less coached ourselves for a couple of years. And then I played, when I was playing juvenile, I got called up several times to the junior salmon bellies. Coach then was a fellow named Bill Tyler. And then when I went up to play junior steadily, the coach was Harry Preston and Jake Trotsik, coaches. I played 3 years with them and then turned senior in 1960.
And what age is senior?
Well, junior goes to 21 and over 21. After 21, you turn senior. Right.
And so senior, that's the senior
salmon bellies.
Salmon bellies.
Yeah.
And so where did you play? Like in New Westminster, what were the facilities like?
Well, we played. There was a lacrosse box at Hume Park, and there was another outdoor box at Moody Park.
Right.
And one of the teams in the league was called East Burnaby, but it was basically the Edmonds area. And they had a lacrosse box in Richmond.
Right.
And in those days, we would get to play maybe one game a year in Queen's Park Arena. That was a big thrill for us.
That was the big...
Yeah. And that was pretty much the same all the way up to minors. Port Coquitlam came in the league, and they had an outdoor box, so we played out there.
So you play rain or shine?
Not usually rain. Soccer, we'd play rain or shine.
Right.
Box hockey, rain or shine.
Yeah. So when you moved into your junior salmon bellies and senior salmon bellies, did you have a specific position that you played for?
Not really. I played forward, center, defense, where you didn't know. Lacrosse, you kind of moved around. The positions kind of intermingle at one time. So you can be a defenseman, but still spend a lot of time up on the goal. So.
And then you'd be playing at Queensborough, is that right?
Queen's Park?
Or Queen's Park, all the time then?
Yeah. Well, we played, the away games would be Carrollsdale Arena.
Right.
And the odd time we played at the Forum. And we get in the playoffs, we'd end up playing in Victoria.
Right. So how many years did you play in senior lacrosse?
In senior lacrosse?
Yeah.
I played 7 years in senior.
7 years?
Yeah.
And any memorable experiences during that time?
Well, we won 2 Man Cups. We won 1962. We were the only team to this day to win 4 straight games in the Man Cup series in the East.
In the East?
Yeah, a lot of teams have won 4 straight at home, but nobody had ever won 4 straight games away from home in the East. So that's still a record today.
So how did the leagues work then? Like, I mean, you mentioned the East. Is that Ontario? Or?
Yeah, it was Ontario.
Right. And so do they have their own league and you had your own league?
Yeah.
And then how did you meet?
Well, they would play off against each other, and the winner from there would play the winner from the West. And it would usually alternate. It would be played in the East one year and the West the next year.
At the winner's city kind of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that would alternate each year. So.
Okay, tell me a little bit about soccer then. You say that you played quite a bit of soccer as well.
I played a lot of soccer in Saffery. We had a young English fellow who recently immigrated to Canada, and he got us playing soccer. Matter of fact, we met him. We were down in those days. Used to be a little pond down the bottom of Hume Park, and the winter would freeze over, and we'd go skating there. And he was working for the Parks Board, and there was a lot of snow that winter, so he was working for the park. He'd be shoveling the snow off there. So we got to know him there. And he told us that we should come out and play soccer. So we went out, and we had a tremendous team. He coached us right up till, I guess, 12, 13, right up to we were about 18, I guess.
Oh, really?
And we won several championships in the minor soccer league.
Right. And
then I graduated from that, and I played for a team called Westminster Legion, which was kind of a farm team for the Westminster Royals. At that time, the Royals were playing in the Summer League.
Okay.
And they were the elite team in Canada at that time. So I played with a lot of guys who had played on that. Played with Buster Cairns and people like that. There were a lot of young guys, and then have a few veterans kind of help them along. So I played about 3 years with them, and then they asked me to try out for the Royals, but that was the same year that I turned senior in lacrosse. And I had to kind of make up my mind. I had to pick one or the other, so I chose lacrosse, mainly because it paid better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In those days, we used to get a split of the gate, and that would work out to about $600 a year, which, when you're only making about $40 or $50 a week, it was pretty good money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I retired at soccer. I was about 21. I guess I played a little bit for a couple years after that.
Right, and then you went seriously into lacrosse.
Well, yeah, I pretty well decided to go with lacrosse. And rather than play soccer in the winter, we used to play box hockey. A league that we started was probably the first organized ball hockey league in Canada.
Oh, really? Really? And so that was a big thing for the winter then, playing?
Well, for us it was. We had a team we called ourselves the Hume Park Hornets.
Okay.
And we played out of Hume Park. Fellows like Skip Chapman and Mac Tyler, Ian Bowl.
Okay.
It was it was kind of a fun league, but it was quite competitive.
Was it?
And we'd play rain or shine. It was the greatest thing in the world for a hangover. You'd go out Saturday night and then go out and run around the rain on Sunday morning and straighten you up in a hurry. So.
And did that league, was that Lower Mainland League, or?
Well, at the time it was a local league. We had a team from Coquitlam was in it, and there were a couple of. We started out. We only had 3 teams, so every Sunday one team would have to play 2 games. And then it grew to the point where we had about 6 or 8 teams, and then from there it grew into I forget what they called the league, Lower Mainland Ball Hockey League or something, but they went on to Canadian Championships and everything, but that was long after we had retired.
Right.
But the first couple of years I was the president of the league, as well as the coach of the Hornets.
Really? Now, when you say we, are you talking about friends that you grew up with?
Yeah, it was a lot of, we used to go down all the time and play, shoot a ball around in the tennis court before they even built the. Originally, they had a lacrosse box down on the far east field at Hume Park, but it was a wooden or a dirt floor. And then in the winter, you couldn't play on it because it'd just be mud. So we used to play around in the tennis courts. So when they built the lacrosse box down there with an asphalt floor, that's when we started. We formed this, got organized and formed this league. And went on for years. The Hornets won the league for about 7 or 8 straight years. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. And that was you as a player and then a coach?
Well, mostly as a player. And I was the playing coach at the time. And then I had a bad knee, and I quit for a couple of years, and then I went down to a game one day, so they talked me into playing goal. So I played goal and ended up playing until I was about, I guess it must have been 48 years old when I finally retired from playing goal in box hockey.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So this is right up into the 70s then?
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. It was good recreation for us.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me a little bit about coaching. Did you do any coaching?
Yeah, I coached a lot of minor. I coached soccer for a couple of years in minor little kids soccer.
And this would have been in the 60s or 70s? Or?
Well, that would have been I started, I guess, in the late 60s.
Right.
And I coached a senior B lacrosse team in New Westminster. Coached for 2 years, the team called New Westminster Blues. Mm-hmm. And we won 2 Western Canada championships.
Really?
Yeah. And then I got out of it for a couple of years, and then a friend of mine, Jerry London, both of our kids were playing. They were just little 6-year-olds at the time. So we started coaching them, and we coached them for, I guess, 5 or 6 years, and pretty good success with them. The first few years we coached them, they couldn't pass the ball, but we kept practicing it, and all of a sudden they started to catch the ball, and we won 3 or 4 BC championships with them once they learned to catch the ball.
So this is lacrosse?
This was minor lacrosse, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All 3 of my boys played a bit of lacrosse. My oldest one, Marty, was a goalie. My second son, he played a bit, but he always complained about a big guy from Surrey every time he played. He'd just run right over him because he was kind of a little guy when he was younger. After about 3 years of this big guy from Surrey running over him, we found out that this big guy was a girl. So he was so mortified he never played lacrosse again. So he played a lot of hockey and was not a bad hockey player. Played junior B and coached up in the, I forget the league is, but he was up in Grand Forks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it like being involved in sport as a coach? What sort of pressures did you have?
In coaching minors, the only pressures they had are dealing with parents at times.
Right.
Especially minor hockey. I for about 10 years, I was the novice hockey czar. I ran the division that's kids who were 6 and 7 years old. Mm. And we didn't have very many players then, so a chap named Butch Black was helping me. And we split the kids up into 3 teams, but there was only about 8 or 9 players on each team. And we just played amongst ourselves. And it had a lot of fun. The kids got a lot of ice time. But we had pressure all the time, parents wanting us to travel to Squamish to play their brother's team.
Right.
You know, these are 6-year-old kids. You know, so I managed to fend that off. My biggest problem for years in minor hockey in particular was the parents would get so wound up over it. They were looking at it as career training rather than recreation.
Right.
And the problems we had was this. I once suggested to the BC Minor Hockey Association, they used to have Minor Hockey Week in Canada, they still do, but their motto was take, don't send your boy to the arena. I suggested that they turn it around and send, don't take your boy to the arena, because there were so many problems.
Really, hey? Yeah.
But I survived that. Those were the only pressures, trying to keep the parents under control.
Yeah.
Kids were great.
Did you ever officiate, or were you ever a referee in a sport?
Not really. The odd time when we were coaching novice lacrosse, the little 6-year-olds, we'd go out on the floor with the kids and referee. One coach on each team would referee. I had a couple of funny instances there. Once I gave this kid a penalty. I said, "You got 2-minute penalty. You have to go to the penalty box." He turned around and looked and said, "No." So I didn't know how to handle that. Another time I was starting to play's going down the floor, and I hear this scream from behind me. I look back, and the little goalie for the Coquitlam team, he had so much padding on, he'd fallen on his stomach, and he was like a turtle on his back. He couldn't get up. So we had to go and stand him up. I was laughing so hard I could hardly see what I was doing. But that was a lot of fun.
Would these kids really get into it?
Oh, yeah, they loved it. And the best thing I liked about the novice hockey is that you'd start the season, the first practice, I'd go to the center of the ice and blow the whistle, and all the players would come in. Most of them couldn't skate.
Right.
So they're coming there crawling on their hands and knees and whatnot. And I thought, if I had a video camera in those days and could take that picture of that first practice and then take a picture of the last practice, you would see so much improvement in the way the kids can skate, because they just learn so fast at that age.
Right. Yeah.
And I often regretted that we never did that.
Huh. So I understand you were a writer, right? Or a journalist.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So who did you work for as a journalist?
Well, I started working at the Columbian newspaper. It's a former daily paper in Westminster. And I started, actually, when I was in high school, I did a little bit of writing for them. I guess I started in 1957.
Really? And any reason for that?
Well, I love sports, and they wanted a sports writer, and I got a good recommendation from the journalism teacher, Mr. Grant, at the high school. So I started working there, and I worked there for 7 years. And then I went to, for a while there, I had a little sports paper called Sports Week, but it was short-lived. And then I went to I was supposed to go to work at a paper called the Vancouver Times. It was a paper that was just starting up. I was supposed to start working there in September, and I'd left the Columbian in the spring. And while I was waiting to start there, I got a phone call from Rolly Rose, who was my first boss at the Columbian, saying they offered me a job at the Sun. So I went to the Sun, and I worked there off and on for 35 years. So.
Really?
Yeah.
So when did you finish there then?
About 10 years ago, I took early retirement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like you did your writing or your work in the newspaper as well as the sports. Was there ever any conflict or overlap?
No, there wasn't a conflict, but I used to, several times, I'd be traveling with the lacrosse team playing, and I would also write the stories while the other guys are going out after the game to have a few beer. I'd be back writing the story for the paper.
Right.
I did that in 62. I first did it in 59. We were back playing for the Minto Cup in junior. And then I did it again in 62. And also while I was back there, I covered the Canadian Championship soccer game. The Royals were playing back there at the same time.
Oh, really?
So I was busy, had a busy few days.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
But I covered pro hockey when we had a team in town called the Royals. I covered the odd Lions football game. I covered a lot of the big track meets that we used to have in town. I covered a lot of high school sport, which I quite enjoyed. High school basketball, I think, was my favorite thing to cover.
That was your favorite?
Yeah, there was just so much excitement and enthusiasm in it. It was just...
So would you cover some of the big games for basketball too then, or?
Well, there weren't many big games outside of high school in those days. Well, there was UBC at one point had a good team, but no, we didn't cover UBC that much for New Westminster.
Right. So that's when you were working for the Columbian, or did you do this as well with the Sun?
When I went to the Sun, I covered a little bit. I covered some track and field. I covered some soccer, some lacrosse. But mostly I went into desk work over there. I got tired of traveling around. You know, when we had the hockey team here, you were traveling all the time. And young family, so I quite enjoyed the desk work, you know, laying out the pages and
I see.
Selecting the pictures and sizing them.
I see. Right.
So I did that for a long time at the Sun. So.
Right. And did you ever reserve a spot for New Westminster? Was there ever like a soft part for you?
Well, I used to save a spot for lacrosse every night, and then when we weren't covering it, and 9 times out of 10 they would forget to phone me, and so I'd be stuck with a piece of white space in the paper. I used to have to scramble around.
Right.
No, I didn't. One thing I learned, I had a good boss early, and he stressed on me that you got to be straight with people. You can't be letting your biases run away with you. And,
right. So you say your favorite to cover was basketball.
High school basketball.
High school basketball.
Yeah.
What made that your favorite?
Well, there was just so much excitement. You know, you get the gym was just packed with screaming high school kids,
right.
And the games were so well played.
Really?
I started at that point. Basketball in the Fraser Valley was just starting to blossom. So at the Columbian, we started covering high school. So I was the first one to start going up the valley covering games up there. Right.
This is the late 50s, is that right? Or?
No, this would have been the 60s, I guess it would have been.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And places like MEI,
right.
Abbotsford and whatnot, it just turned out to be tremendous basketball powers in high school in those days. Up until then, there was a team from Mission that did fairly well, but mostly it was Vancouver teams and New Westminster. Like New Westminster won. It was 6 out of the first 11.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why do you think they won?
Well,
like, was it the players or
you always had the good athletes growing up here. Plus, they had good coaching. Both schools had excellent coaches. Ken Wright and Rudy Wiley.
Those were the coaches.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Tell me a little bit about what, like growing up in New Westminster, what your neighborhood was like when it came to sports. Like, did everybody get involved?
Well, most of the boys did. The girls, in those days, there wasn't much in the way of sports. But we were always playing something. We were out in the street with our hockey sticks or down in the park kicking a football around or throwing a football, playing yards or playing softball or swimming.
Right.
Just that's basically all we did.
Right. So. And would the parents be involved in some way?
Not usually. Parents weren't that involved. My dad always went to my games, but he was rare. There weren't too many parents.
Really?
It was a different time, a different place.
Yeah.
You know. But we, I don't know. We just that's all we lived for was to play something. You know? Get out at recess at school, we'd be kicking the ball around and playing softball. If the school had a soccer team or something, we'd always be right there. But it was just that's basically all we did. It was, during the summer, we'd spend all our time at Hume Park. We'd go swimming first thing in the morning until they kicked us out of the pool, and then we would start playing ball sometime. Sometimes we'd go and take a hike up Burnaby Mountain called Snake Hill, which is where SFU is now.
Right.
Put a sandwich and a can of pork and beans in a bag and hike up Burnett Creek. And we used to go down Burnett Creek a lot and go swimming down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But basically, we lived for sports. Most of the friends that I had.
Right. And when you got into sort of the higher level sports, junior and senior salmon bellies and the higher level soccer and stuff, what was the audience like?
Well, you didn't draw very many people to the games, you know, girlfriends and the odd parents. But junior lacrosse, when you got to the playoffs, you usually start drawing pretty good crowds.
Right.
So, you know, you're usually playing for wives and girlfriends when you get to that point. And then, but when we got to senior lacrosse, we were packing them in pretty good at the time.
That was like the elite sort of level, is that right?
Yeah. And it was an era. Once Jack Fulton got involved and turned things around in New Westminster, because the game was almost dead in the early 50s.
Right.
And then about 50s, what would it be, 56, 57, I guess, they got involved and started building the team, and then they won 2 Canadian championships in 58 and 59.
And then the community started getting involved
Well,
again,
yeah,
is that right?
yeah. I mean, when they brought Jack Bionda in, the crowds were... Bionda was, I still think, was the greatest lacrosse player ever. Not only was he a tremendous talent, but he had so much charisma. He was so colorful. Just a real showman out there. And he just brought the crowds. I have a cousin who saw every game Jack Bionda played in Westminster. Never seen one before, never saw one again.
Really?
Even though I was playing for the team, he never
really.
He wasn't a lacrosse fan, but he was a Jack Bionda fan.
Right. Did you play with Jack Bionda?
Yeah, I played with him for 3 years, I guess.
Right. And so you were playing and reporting and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was... used to play lacrosse game at night and get home about midnight, and then I'd be at work at 5 in the morning.
Must have been exciting times, though.
Oh yeah. It was good times. The lacrosse was so exciting then because of the big crowds, and they'd really get into it because you'd have hated rivals out there, and they'd be booing and throwing stuff.
What would have been the big rivalries?
Well, Vancouver was always a big rivalry for us, and to a certain extent, Nanaimo. Nanaimo had a real rough and ready team, and there was always bloodshed when you played Nanaimo.
And so, how often would you play sort of your rivals, or?
Well, we used to play 30 games
in a season.
In a season, and there were four teams in the league for most of the time. There was 5 for a while, and so whatever the math is on that, you'd play them. Usually you'd play, like we play Vancouver on a Tuesday night, and just enough to get the tempers up, and then they'd be back here on Thursday night. So by Thursday night, everybody's fans were howling, and it was just amazing.
Really? Would you have New Westminster fans going to Vancouver and vice versa?
Yeah. Or on Saturday nights you go to Nanaimo, and God, there'd be fights in the stands. And
Really?
It was a riot.
So people really got into it.
Oh God, it was really intense, but it was good. I mean, it was exciting.
I bet. And say for like the Man Cup in New Westminster, what did it feel like in the town?
Oh, it was. It wasn't like it was in the 30s and 40s, where the whole town would basically shut down. But it was a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
And it was it'd be tough to get into the arena some nights.
Yeah.
Because there'd be people coming from all over Lower Mainland just to see the Man Cup games. They were something a little special. They were really hard fought.
For the Man Cup. Yeah. But I mean, even for getting into the finals must have been... Well,
amazingly, for a while in the early 60s there, usually the better games were the local finals.
Right.
Because the Eastern teams were a little weak at the time. So.
Right.
Like we went back east, we won 4 straight games, and that has never happened before or since.
Right.
65, we won it at home, and that was a better series. We were down 3-1 in games and ended up winning it in the 7th game. So.
Yeah,
so that was better. But in 62, we played Vancouver in the finals, and the winning team had to leave. I think it was on a Monday. The winning team had to fly back east. And the game went 7 games, and the 7th game was on Saturday night, and went into overtime. We ended up winning it against Vancouver. Vancouver had a tremendous team in that point, so our games were all just all out wars when we played. But both teams had, they had to get the money out of the bank. You didn't have cash machines in those days, and both teams had to be packed and ready to go.
Right.
And you played Saturday night, and you had to, whether you won or lost, you had to be ready to go.
Right.
So it was kind of anticlimactic when we went back there and won it in 4 straight.
I bet. I mean, the real series happened here.
Oh yeah. And a lot of times in the 60s that was the case, because lacrosse was better here at the time. The East was kind of having a low period.
Oh, I see.
But it caught up in a hurry, I think.
So explain the game of lacrosse to me just a little bit. Like, how does it work? How does it start? And
Well, first thing, you have to be a little simple to play it because you got guys beating on you with sticks. So it's played in a hockey rink without the ice, of course. It's played on the floor. Goals at each end. The goals are smaller than hockey goals, and you basically try to throw the ball into the net.
Right.
And there's no offsides or icing or anything like that. You're allowed to cross-check to stop the guy, or you can slash him on the stick, or well, the aim is to go for the stick, but you usually end up whacking his arms all the time. So.
Right. And so do you wear padding?
Oh yeah, you have a lot.
Back then, did you as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I never got hurt that outside of hurting a knee in lacrosse. I used to get hurt more in soccer.
Mm.
Lacrosse looks way rougher than it is, but you're well padded, so
right.
The guy gives you a two-handed slash. You might feel it. But.
Yeah.
So it's basically usually start with a face-off where the two players put their sticks down, the referee puts the ball between the two sticks, and then when the whistle goes, you just draw and try to win the ball.
Right.
It's a simple game. It's not a lot of the strategies are taken from basketball, the blocks and picks and that sort of thing.
Right, because the ball's in the air, is that right? Or
well, it's just you have five guys on their feet, and you're trying to make a path to the goal.
Right.
So you're coming in, this guy's got the ball, and the guy's checking him, and the other guy will come up and stand beside the checker, and the other guy runs around him, and the checker can't get through this
right.
guy. So that's what you call a block or a pick.
I see.
So a lot of strategy is taken from basketball.
Right. What did you most enjoy about sports?
Just the excitement of the competition. You've always been competitive, and you like
right.
It's just something that it's kind of hard to explain. You just like to go out and do the best you can against the best.
Right.
So.
And even covering a sport, is it the same sort of thing?
Well, if you love sports, it's the greatest thing in the world to cover it.
Right.
So. And the excitement of the games. Most games you become a bit of an expert on them. And, I go to games. I still go to. I haven't covered games for a long time, but I still go to games, and I'll sit there very passively while everybody else is there and screaming. But when I was covering them, sitting in the press box, you couldn't be standing up yelling and screaming.
Right.
You would have to have some semblance of order to what you were doing. You didn't want to be making like a fan.
Right. So, and would you write shorthand or something like that to make it fast, or did you have your own sort of method?
I had my own method.
Yeah.
I never took shorthand, but I had. And the when I was reporting, I had a good memory for what people were saying. I could interview somebody without taking notes.
Oh, really?
And pretty well have it. Like there was the New Westminster hockey coach at the time was Hal Lako. He was a very well-known hockey man. He played in the NHL and whatnot. And I sat down at have lunch with him one day, and I didn't have a pencil or notes or anything. I wasn't taking anything. Next day, I had a story in the paper, and Lako was absolutely amazed that
he could remember it.
That I had everything exactly the way he thought he had said it. And he mentioned to my boss, he says, "I've never seen anything like it." So,
well, it's a good skill for a reporter.
So basically, my notes would be just kind of reminders that
right.
what they said and what happened.
Right.
I couldn't do that now to save my life.
What sort of major memorable events stick out in your mind from being involved or reporting sports?
Well, the two Man Cups were very exciting, and the two Western Championships I won coaching senior B team. I really enjoyed that. I was offered the job of coaching the Salmon Bellies, but I didn't really want it at the time because there wasn't an awful lot to achieve. The team, they always had a good team and winning. So. But these senior B guys, they're all a bunch of young kids just out of junior. And they just had so much enthusiasm for the game that I thought, yeah, dude, I'll coach them. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I had just 2 great years with them. The guys worked their buns off. We ended up winning 2 championships. And I coached a midget team like that. The team had started, the midget was 15, 16-year-olds. They started the season, and they'd lost 2 games by 18 or 20 goals each game. So the coach quit, and they phoned and asked me if I'd like to coach them. So I went and talked to the kids first to get a feel for them. So I thought, yeah, I'd like to do that. So it turned out at the end of the year, we came back, we made the playoffs, and then we ended up losing in overtime to the team that eventually won the Western Canadian Championship.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. I get more enjoyment of taking a lousy team and making it better than I would take on a good team and winning.
Right. So it sounds to me you really liked working with the kids.
Oh, I did.
Right.
As long as the kids were enthusiastic about it and they wanted to play.
Right.
First thing I wanted, before I coached any kids, I'd go and talk to them and find out if they wanted to play.
Right.
If they didn't want to play, they were just out there for lark, then I wasn't interested. When I was coaching, I'd throw myself into it. I'd get really into it. I had a couple of instances I got into it, and I was the only one that gave a damn. So I found that very frustrating. But,
I bet, yeah.
But I enjoyed kids that wanted to play. That's all I asked. And because you got something to work with, or you got something to do.
Yeah.
But I far more enjoyed teams that I could take from last place to 3rd or 4th or something than I would taking a first place team and keeping it in first.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about some, stories about some people that stick out in your mind over the past, sportsmen or women.
Well, the best player and the guy I admired was Jack Bionda. He was a guy that just was so much better than everybody else.
Right.
Just dominated the game. One of the rare guys that could almost win the game single-handedly. Yet he had no pretentiousness about him at all. He was just like I was just a spear carrier on this team.
Right.
Yet he treated me like I was another superstar, And he treated everybody like that. He was just really a good guy.
Right.
And I played with other guys who were good players and knew it,
Right.
But Jack was just, I just thought he was the best. A guy that I grew up with, we played box hockey together, and a guy named Skippy Chapman. He ended up playing most of his lacrosse in Victoria. But one of the big thrills for me was when he got named to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
That was just because we were good buddies when we were younger.
I bet. Yeah.
Had a lot of fun together, but he was just a neat guy. I got to know a lot of athletes, and I found that hockey players on the whole were pretty good guys.
Right. You
get the odd one that's a bit of an asshole. Basketball players, pros, probably the world's biggest jerks.
Oh, really?
But collectively, like the team we had in Vancouver, they were just a bunch of
Why?
guys.
Just because
they're just so full of themselves.
Oh, I see.
And you just can't. It's pretty hard to communicate with them because they're just, they're a basketball star and you're nothing.
Yeah.
Except for that type of thing.
Yeah.
Hockey players, I haven't been around hockey players for a while, but when I was found them very approachable. The best people that I've been involved with have been lacrosse people.
Right. Do you think that's because it's more of a grassroots type sport?
I think it's because they're in the game for the love of the game. I mean, nobody's getting rich in lacrosse.
Right.
Even though they got a pro league, they don't make any money at it,
right.
anything to speak of. So I think it's just because it's they're in it because they love the game, and they seem to have a lot of respect for each other, foes and what. Like I still get a kick out of meeting and talking to guys that we used to hammer the hell out of each other when we were playing. Fellow lives in a building here named Pete Black, played for Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
Used to pound on each other all the time.
Really?
Yeah, we have a great time bullshitting about.
Yeah, you bump into him?
Oh yeah, I see him quite often, yeah.
So what about friendships? I mean, Pete Black is one that's kind of been formed out of a rivalry of all
well,
things.
I wouldn't say the friend. We're acquaintances.
Right,
So,
right. So what sort of friendships have been formed through sports?
Well, Skip Chapman's one of my best friends. We kind of grew up together in Saffery. So but Jack Fulton's a friend of mine through Lacrosse. Most of my best friends, and we still keep to communicate, are people that grew up in Saccharin around. And for years, we still called ourselves the Hume Park Hornets to this day.
Oh, right.
And we've taken trips together. We took a cruise together.
This is the ball hockey.
Well, some of the ball hockey players, but just guys who grew up in Saccharin and went to school with. We still call ourselves the Hume Park Hornets. We used to have Hornet picnics every summer, but we haven't for a few years. But we went to Mexico.
Really?
12 of us.
Right. And these are all people you played sports with, and their wives.
Well, guys I grew up with. They all didn't play sports, but we went to school together. A lot of the girls we married grew up in Sacramento as well.
Right.
So we still we went on this cruise, and we had our T-shirts with the Hume Park Hornets on it, and they had a. When you go on a cruise, they always have one night's a masquerade party. So all the girls made Hornet costumes, black and orange striped pants with hoods, and so we all wore them to the masquerade. And we'd gone to jazz festivals together in Mexico. And we had a really good time. So.
And do you still maintain contact with them?
Oh yeah. Jerry Lundu, I mentioned, I coached with. I see him all the time.
Right.
A lot of us get together New Year's Eve where we have an early dinner, and we're usually home in bed by 11. We used to hang in till midnight, but we're finding that's getting harder all the time.
Yeah, I guess so. What sort of impact has sports had in your life? I mean, in terms of meaning and skills and discipline and teamwork, things like that.
It obviously teaches you teamwork and discipline, and ruined my knee. I think the friendships that you meet, there's a lot of people that I've met and admired and still communicate and whatnot.
Right. How about to New Westminster and the community? Do you still feel that sport is important?
Oh yeah, the sport is definitely important here. Unfortunately, the New Westminster has changed a little bit. Lacrosse, the biggest problem that sport has in New Westminster now is it doesn't have its own newspaper anymore. Like the Record, the paper that I started, they have one sports section a week, and that hurts. Like we've had a couple of junior B hockey teams in town, but when they don't have a paper to get the word out about it, they just folded. And the senior lacrosse team is going through tough times now for the same reason.
Right. They're just not getting the exposure.
Yeah, it's hard enough to get the word out. The dailies, big papers don't do it, mainly because their deadlines are so damn early now. So.
Right. Apart from that, we're pretty much done the interview. Is there anything that you feel like you need to add to that I've maybe missed or forgotten?
I don't think so. One thing, New Westminster was always a great place to grow up in.
Yeah.
I always think New Westminster, to me, And a lot of businesses around in the newspapers and don't comprehend this at all. New Westminster is like a small town. New Westminster could be sitting out in the middle of the prairie somewhere.
Right.
But because it butts up against Burnaby and Coquitlam and Surrey and Richmond, everybody thinks it's all part of that.
Right.
New Westminster people, they don't give a damn what's going on in Burnaby.
Right.
And New Westminster probably has more people who move away and come back.
Right.
You know, they get married and they move away. And either they come back when they retire or come back later. Mm-hmm. It's almost an incestuous community where families are,
right.
are one old family marrying into another old family.
Right.
And
right.
it's just...
so it's a strong community then.
It's a strong community, and it's like a little oasis in the middle of this vast desert of humanity in the Lower Mainland.
Right.
It's
right.
New Westminster, and
right.
you know, people are proud of that. And we're not Coquitlam, we're not Burnaby, we're not Greater Vancouver.
Right.
We were here before Vancouver, and damn it, get that through your head. So,
right.
It's a great city. It's going through some changes and
right.
whatnot, but it's always had that sense of pride. And, it's a good place to live. I've lived here virtually all my life. I was born and bred. I lived in Coquitlam a couple of times for 2 or 3 years. I lived up in Courtenay for about 6 months, and was up in the Okanagan for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just came back about 3.5 years ago. But no, I consider myself New Westminster.
Yeah. Good.
It's a good place to grow up.
Right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Hope you got what you needed.
I think so.